You are not reading this by accident. There's a reason why these words have reached you at this exact moment. It does not matter what you are facing right now. It does not matter if you feel stuck, tired, confused, or unmotivated. What matters is that there is something within you that wants to awaken, to grow, to move forward, to flourish. You were created with a greater purpose. You were not born just to survive, but to prosper, to bear fruit, to create impact, and to remain firm even when chaos surrounds you. But if your life does not seem to flow as it should, if you feel you are giving your best and still not seeing results, the problem is not lack of effort. The root of the matter lies in disconnection from the principles that govern true success. From ancient times, God established spiritual codes designed to guide the human mind toward fullness. One of the most powerful, and at the same time one of the most ignored, is found at the very beginning of the book of Psalms, Psalm 1. This is not a piece of empty poetry or a collection of religious phrases. It is direct guidance, clarity, and applicable truth. It is a map that reveals two paths, one that belongs to the righteous and one that belongs to the wicked. One path leads to stability, fruitfulness, and permanence. The other leads to exhaustion, confusion, and collapse. Psalm 1 was not written simply to be memorized. It was written to be lived. Every verse has a precise function in shaping a mindset aligned with the true source. And it does not only speak of faith, it speaks of decision, focus, and mental discipline. It speaks about choosing what enters your mind and what must be rejected. It speaks of building from the inside out. Napoleon Hill, in his most influential work, taught that every form of wealth begins with a thought, but not just any thought. It has to be clear, repeated, charged with emotion, affirmed by faith, and sustained through action. Psalm 1 describes exactly that same process using words written thousands of years ago, yet resting on the same principle. The righteous separate themselves from noise, filter their influences, meditate on the truth, and then flourish like a tree planted beside waters. Most people want to change their circumstances, yet continue thinking the same way. They keep walking in the same environments, listening to the same advice, repeating the same phrases. They do not realize that the mind is the root of all transformation. Nothing changes outwardly until what is inside is corrected. This is not content made for entertainment. It is a point of activation. It is a door opening for anyone tired of watching life pass without fruit. If you are reading this, it is because you are ready. Ready to break cycles that lead nowhere. Ready to build a life with meaning, with direction, with real results. Every word you are about to absorb has a purpose: to reveal how the mindset of the righteous works and how to apply it practically in your daily life. Verse by verse, we will dismantle this spiritual structure and rebuild it within you, with clarity, with depth, with real connection, and always in the light of the wisdom that both Hill and the scriptures share. Success is not the product of luck. It is the fruit of a governed mind. But before advancing further, there is a decision you must make. Hill called it definiteness of purpose. The Bible calls it the determination of the righteous. Transformation does not begin when you merely understand something. Transformation begins when you declare it. That is why right now you need to make an affirmation. Write it down on paper, in your mind, or if this becomes audio, even in the comments section. Affirmed in purpose. Write those words not as a formula, but as a sign, as a covenant with yourself, as a spiritual declaration that you are ready to advance, ready to order your thoughts, ready to live under principles that bear fruit. From this moment on, every truth you hear will become a seed. And if you decide to water that seed, your mind will become fertile ground. You have been called to flourish, not to run without direction, not to be moved by circumstances, not to live as a leaf carried by the wind, but to stand like a tree, firm, planted, nourished by deep waters. Psalm 1 is more than a text. It is a key. And if you have reached this point, it means you are ready to turn it and walk through the door it opens. The first verse of Psalm 1 is a bold declaration, a line that divides two mental worlds. It says, "Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers." Here everything begins. This is the spiritual and mental foundation of a stable, prosperous, and purposeful life. The word blessed here does not simply describe someone who is happy. In biblical language, to be blessed means to be in a position of divine favor. It means to have the mind, the will, and the spirit aligned with a higher law. It means to live under covering. This is not luck. It is internal structure. And notice carefully, the verse does not begin by describing what this person does. It begins by showing what he avoids. The first action of the righteous is separation. The journey toward prosperity does not begin by doing more. It begins by ceasing to absorb what contaminates. Does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. Here lies the first key. The counsel of the wicked represents voices that seem wise, but are disconnected from truth. They are ideas disguised as logic, but loaded with fear, mediocrity, doubt, envy, or superficiality. These voices do not necessarily come from evil people, but from minds without spiritual discernment. Accepting such counsel is equivalent to opening the door of your mind to chaos. It is allowing distorted thoughts to be planted in your heart. Napoleon Hill emphasized this point. He taught that the mental environment defines destiny. The mind absorbs whatever is repeated to it with emotional intensity. The thoughts of others, when accepted without filter, eventually become convictions. Convictions become decisions. Decisions become destiny. The righteous avoid such counsel not because they feel superior, but because they know that every word allowed into the mind is a seed, and the fruit will always depend on the seed. But the verse does not end there. It also says, "Nor stands in the way of sinners." First one walks with bad counsel. Then one stops, adapts, adjusts. This is the second level of contamination. It is no longer just listening. It is starting to become part of it. The way of sinners represents lifestyles, habits, routines, and environments that drift away from truth, order, and purpose. The mind begins to get used to what is common, to what is easy, to what everyone else is doing. Hill strongly warned about this. He taught that true failure rarely comes suddenly. It arrives slowly when the mind lowers its standards, when vigilance is abandoned, when comfort takes over. A person does not simply fall, they gradually surrender. And then the last part of the verse arrives, "Nor sits in the seat of scoffers." This is the deepest level. It is no longer about listening or walking. It is about sitting. The act of sitting implies belonging, identification, stability in the wrong place. The seat of scoffers is the environment where spirituality is mocked, where faith is denied, where purpose is minimized, where everything noble becomes an object of ridicule. This is not only a physical place but also a mental state. Whoever sits there without realizing it loses the sensitivity of the soul. Hill described this condition as the drifting mind. a state where the person no longer thinks clearly but simply drifts, carried away by what they hear, see, or feel. It is a mind without anchor, without structure, without focus, without root. The righteous, by contrast, protect their mind. They do not allow themselves to be dragged. They do not let just any idea become truth within them. They apply discernment. They know that thinking correctly is more important than acting frantically, because every action is born first from a thought. And this is the real application of this verse. Today, more than ever, it is urgent to protect the mental field, to review what advice you are listening to, what paths you are walking, and in what seats you are sitting. Every influence leaves a mark. Every word penetrates. Every environment shapes you. The righteous are not defined by religiosity or moralism, but by the conscious choices they make about what enters their mind. And those choices are made every single day. The mind is never neutral. It is fertile soil, and if you do not plant intention, confusion will grow by default. That is why today the first decision is not to do more. It is to stop absorbing what contaminates your roots. The righteous protect themselves before bearing fruit, and in that protection lies the true beginning of everything. The journey of Psalm 1 does not stop at separation. The text moves deeper into the life of the righteous and shows us what he embraces. The first verse made clear what he avoids: the counsel of the wicked, the path of sinners, the seat of mockers. But the second verse now reveals his true source of strength. It says, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." Here we see the second great key of a prosperous mind. Transformation is never just about removing what contaminates. It is also about filling the heart and mind with truth. It is not enough to abstain from falsehood. One must feed on wisdom. The righteous do not live in mental emptiness. They live in spiritual nutrition. And this nutrition comes from a very specific source: the law of the Lord. Notice that the text does not say the righteous simply read the law, nor that they memorize it as theory, nor that they study it academically. It says their delight is in it, their pleasure, their joy, their sense of fulfillment. They do not practice it out of obligation, but out of awareness. They know that in those words there is life, direction, stability, and fruit. Napoleon Hill described a similar process in his teachings on autosuggestion. He said the human mind can be shaped through repeated, intentional, emotionally charged affirmations. What is repeated with conviction eventually sinks into the subconscious and shapes decisions and behaviors. That is exactly what the psalmist describes here. Meditation. To meditate in this context does not mean simply sitting in silence. It means contemplating, repeating, engraving truth into thought, until it displaces doubt, until wisdom replaces impulse, until clarity becomes automatic. The righteous meditate on the law day and night. It is not a once-in-a-while practice. It is a constant rhythm, a daily discipline. Hill insisted that dominant thoughts always become convictions, and convictions always become actions. This is why the one who thinks with direction acts with intention, and the one who acts with intention produces visible results. The righteous do not meditate sporadically. They make it a habit, woven into the rhythm of their life. They turn their mornings and evenings into times of nourishment. This practice transforms not only the mind, but also the emotional state. A person who fills themselves with truth does not panic at every wave of fear. Someone who affirms their purpose every morning walks firmly even in uncertain times. Someone who ends their day with reflection and alignment rests in peace rather than in anxiety. Applying this verse in daily life means creating conscious routines of mental nourishment. It could be reading a passage every morning, declaring affirmations out loud, writing a principle repeatedly, or visualizing a desired result with faith. All of these actions are forms of meditation. All of them water the seeds planted in the mind. And the seed that receives the most water is the one that grows. The righteous know this. That is why they do not simply avoid the negative. They cultivate the positive every single day. Not because they have time to spare, but because they understand that what is not fed will eventually die. And they choose to feed what matters most, their root. If these words are resonating with you right now, it is because something within you is awakening. Perhaps you have been running from distraction to distraction, exhausted by noise, and this moment is calling you back to nourishment. Do not ignore that call. Meditation is not outdated. It is the most advanced technology of the soul. It is the way we program our minds for stability, for clarity, for success. Psalm 1 then moves into verse 3, and here the imagery becomes powerful and unforgettable. It says, "He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prospers." This verse is not a poetic exaggeration. It is a vivid picture of the natural result of a disciplined, righteous mindset. A tree does not run. A tree does not chase. A tree does not compete. It simply stands planted, and not just planted anywhere, but beside streams of water. Its roots have constant access to nourishment, invisible yet unshakable. This is the life of the righteous. Their source is not external applause, shifting circumstances, or temporary motivation. Their source is internal. It is the truth they meditate on. It is the purpose they have defined. It is the connection to divine law that sustains them, even when the external world feels unstable. Hill often said that true success is measured not by sudden achievements, but by the ability to endure, to grow, and to produce consistently over time. A person connected to their purpose does not collapse at the first crisis. They have roots. And those roots are not visible, but they are real. They are hidden underground, drawing nourishment from a constant source. Notice the detail. The verse says, "The righteous bear fruit in season." Not before, not after, at the right time. This is crucial. The righteous do not compare themselves to others. They do not live in anxiety over speed. They understand cycles. They know that if the seed is good, if the care is constant, and if the root is strong, the fruit will come in its own time. And when it comes, it will be mature, abundant, and lasting. Hill called this the principle of the harvest. Every sustained action, rooted in a dominant thought, eventually manifests. But manifestation never happens on the schedule of impatience. It happens on the schedule of growth. The righteous persevere without despair because their mind is aligned with process rather than with urgency. The verse continues, "Whose leaf does not wither." This represents resilience, integrity, and consistency in the face of changing seasons. Many people start strong but fade halfway through. But the righteous endure. They remain green even in the heat of summer and in the chill of winter. Why? Because their nourishment does not come from circumstances. It comes from the source. And those who draw from the source do not wither. Hill described this as spiritual self-sufficiency. It is a state in which a person is no longer dependent on the environment to move forward. They move forward by conviction. Their mind has been trained to resist criticism, temporary failure, and lack of immediate results. This resilience is what makes them unstoppable. And then comes the boldest statement of all. Whatever he does prospers, not some things, not only the spiritual things, everything. Because everything they do is born from an aligned mind, from a pure intention, from a well-planted root. When the mind is firm, the results are always prosperity. Hill explained that prosperity is never a goal in itself. It is a reflection. It is the natural outcome of a clear mind, a defined purpose, and disciplined action. Success is a side effect of internal construction, just as fruit is a natural result of a healthy tree. This verse is not promising a magical shortcut. It is outlining a precise equation: mental protection plus meditation plus perseverance equals fruit, resilience, and prosperity. The righteous prosper, not because they seek prosperity, but because they have built the kind of root system that naturally produces it. If these words are planting something within you, do not let the seed stay hidden. Act on it. Do something visible to reflect your inner decision. Even something as small as subscribing to a channel, writing a declaration, or sharing a word with someone else can serve as a symbolic affirmation. Every outward act strengthens the inward conviction. Because the tree does not search for shade, it provides shade. The tree does not chase applause. It produces fruit. And whoever produces fruit will never stop advancing. Now the psalm shifts dramatically in verse 4. After describing the righteous as a tree, it contrasts them with the wicked. Not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. The difference is striking. The righteous are rooted. The wicked are weightless. The righteous draw life from an unseen source. The wicked are dependent on whatever weather comes. Chaff, also known as husk or residue, is what remains after the true seed is separated. It is light, hollow, unstable. It has no root, no weight, no substance. That is why the wind carries it away without resistance. This is the life of the wicked. They are not necessarily evil people. They are people without structure. They live without foundation, without inner strength. They may appear strong when things go well, but when the wind changes, they scatter. Hill called this drifting. He described it as a state where a person has no definite purpose, no clear direction, no control over their thoughts. As a result, they react to every circumstance. They are moved by fear, by pressure, by outside opinion, by fleeting emotions. They are chaff, unstable, unreliable, rootless. Think about it. How many people do you know who seem fine one day and broken the next? Who make promises and quickly abandon them? Who start projects but never finish? Who constantly chase distractions but never build depth? That is the life of chaff. The righteous grow silently. The wicked spin in circles. The righteous act by conviction. The wicked move by impulse. Hill warned that the most destructive error in life is to live without a definite purpose, because a person without a destination can be convinced by any wind to change direction, and winds will always come. A criticism, a bad report, a comparison, a negative emotion, a distraction. The tree remains even when everything shakes. The chaff falls even when the weather is calm. Because collapse does not happen outside, it begins inside. Without a root, no life can endure. This verse is not meant to condemn, but to warn. It is a mirror asking you to examine your own foundation. Where are your roots? Are you planted in truth, or are you floating in borrowed thoughts and unstable emotions? Chaff may feel light, but its lightness is not freedom. It is fragility. It is vulnerability. It cannot sustain a promise, a vision, or a future. Applying this verse means asking honestly, What have you been planting in your mind? Are you investing in structure, or are you content with appearances? Psalm 1 leaves no room for confusion. The righteous produce fruit. The wicked scatter. The righteous build from the inside out. The wicked try to impress from the outside in. The result is always the same: permanence versus dissolution. And if you sense right now that your soul longs for stability, for depth, for real purpose, do not ignore it. That longing is the beginning of new roots. The difference between the tree and the chaff is not luck. It is decision. It is discipline. It is a guided mind. The righteous filter their influences. The wicked absorb anything. The righteous endure. The wicked disintegrate. Life without root cannot last, and fruit never appears without inner cultivation. The psalm now shifts its focus again. After painting the vivid image of the righteous as a strong, rooted tree and the wicked as fragile, drifting chaff, it moves into the reality of what happens when life brings judgment. Verse 5 declares, "Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous." This is not only about some final scene at the end of history. It also speaks about the everyday judgments of life, the moments of testing, the seasons of pressure, the unexpected storms. These are the points at which inner foundations are revealed. The righteous remain, the wicked collapse. Why? Because judgment exposes structure. When the winds rise and the floods come, it is not the decoration of a house that matters, but the foundation. The wicked cannot stand because their foundation was never built. They relied on appearances, emotions, or borrowed opinions. But when crisis shakes, what is not rooted breaks. Napoleon Hill often warned about this. He explained that a person without definite purpose is like a building without foundation. It may look impressive from the outside, but the moment pressure comes, cracks appear, and collapse follows. Life does not ask for permission before sending storms. It is in the storm that we discover what has been built within. This verse also speaks about belonging. It says sinners will not be in the assembly of the righteous. This does not mean exclusion by force. It means natural incompatibility. The assembly of the righteous is a mental and spiritual environment. A circle of people aligned by principle, by truth, by discipline of thought. Those who live by impulse, distraction, and superficiality cannot remain in such a circle, not because they are pushed out, but because they simply cannot sustain the atmosphere. Hill described something similar with his idea of spiritual attraction. He said, "We do not attract what we want. We attract what we are." A mind aligned with clarity and truth begins to draw environments and people of the same frequency. A mind dominated by chaos naturally gravitates toward chaotic environments. The congregation of the righteous is not a club with gates. It is a level of consciousness, and only those who cultivate that level can remain there. Think about your own life. Have you noticed how your environment shifts when your thinking shifts? When you were filled with doubt and distraction, you likely found yourself surrounded by people speaking the same language of doubt. But when you began to pursue clarity and purpose, different people appeared, different doors opened. This is the natural law the psalm describes. The verse says plainly, "The wicked cannot stand in judgment. They cannot endure pressure. They cannot remain in the company of the disciplined. Their inner world has not been prepared." The righteous, on the other hand, not only survive judgment but grow stronger because of it. Trials are not signals of abandonment, but opportunities for roots to go deeper. Hill wrote extensively about the necessity of persistence. He called failure nothing more than temporary defeat. To him, setbacks were a way to test belief, to measure how much conviction a person really held. Those without conviction collapse. Those with conviction stand taller. That is exactly what the psalm declares. Judgment is the moment of separation. And so we come to the final verse of Psalm 1, verse 6. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. This is not only a conclusion. It is the summary of two entire paths. The righteous walk a way known by the Lord, seen, guided, and sustained. The wicked walk a way that inevitably dissolves. The difference is not external but internal. It lies in root, in purpose, in meditation, in alignment. The word knows here is crucial. In Hebrew thought, to know is not just to be aware. It means intimacy, relationship, approval, involvement. When the psalm says the Lord knows the way of the righteous, it means God is not distant. He is near, engaged, protecting, directing, supporting. Hill described a parallel idea when he spoke about alignment with infinite intelligence. He observed that when a person disciplines their mind, clarifies their purpose, and directs their thoughts with persistence, they begin to experience coincidences that are not coincidences. Ideas appear, people align, opportunities open. This is what it means for the Lord to know your way. It does not mean a life without challenges. It means a life where direction is always present. Notice the contrast. The psalm does not say the wicked face punishment. It says their way perishes. Their own path collapses under its own fragility, because anything not built on root eventually falls. This is not divine cruelty but natural law. A life without foundation cannot remain. Hill spoke of structural collapse. A life built on unstable thoughts, shifting desires, or shallow emotions may function for a while, may even impress others, but it cannot endure. Sooner or later the cracks widen, the walls fall, and what seemed strong reveals itself as temporary. The righteous remain, not because they are perfect, but because their path is aligned with the eternal. They meditate. They protect their minds. They persist. They plant themselves in nourishing streams. Their fruit arrives in season. Their leaves remain green, and above all their way is known, guided and sustained by the Creator. The wicked vanish because their path was never aligned. They built alone, without truth, without purpose. And what is built without alignment eventually collapses. Now pause and reflect. What does this mean for you? Every thought is a seed. Every seed creates a path. Every path leads to a destination. There are not many endings. There are only two: permanence or perish, fruit or emptiness, stability or collapse. Which path are you on? Are your roots in nourishing streams, or are you drifting in the winds of circumstance? Are you cultivating meditation, or are you absorbing noise without filter? Are you building with purpose, or surviving by impulse? Psalm 1 leaves no room for neutrality. It is not a poem to memorize. It is a roadmap to live. It places two paths before you and calls you to choose. Hill echoed the same urgency. He said the greatest danger of life is drifting, living without purpose, because drifting does not look dangerous at first. It looks easy, light, even pleasant, but it leads to loss. The psalm calls it perishing. Hill called it failure. Both are the same reality, but the promise is equally strong. The righteous flourish. They prosper, they endure, they attract stability, they leave legacy, not because of luck, not because of talent, but because of choice. They chose to filter their influences. They chose to meditate day and night. They chose to plant their lives beside streams of water. They chose to persist when others quit. They chose to align with truth, and the Lord knows their way. Infinite intelligence supports their steps. Circumstances align. Fruit appears in season. Leaves remain green. Prosperity flows as a reflection of inner construction. This psalm is not just about individuals. It is about generations. The fruit of the righteous tree feeds others. The shade provides shelter. The legacy multiplies. The wicked leave nothing because chaff leaves nothing. It drifts, it scatters, it disappears. But the tree remains for generations. Hill taught that real success is never about accumulation. It is about impact, about legacy, about the ability to pass on values, vision, and conviction. Psalm 1 affirms the same truth. The righteous endure not just for themselves, but for those who come after. Their way is known by the Lord and becomes a blessing for many. So where do you stand today? Are you content with drifting, with living light, and rootless, easily carried by every opinion and every fear? Or are you ready to plant, to meditate, to persist, to align? The invitation is not to perfection, but to decision, to choose the path of the righteous, to let your mind become the fertile ground of wisdom, to allow your roots to sink deep into eternal streams, to trust that fruit will come in its season, to believe that your leaf will not wither, to build with purpose so that whatever you do prospers, and perhaps most importantly, to rest in the promise that your way is known. You are not invisible. Your labor is not forgotten. Your struggle is not wasted. The Lord sees. Infinite intelligence aligns. Heaven knows, and what is known by heaven cannot be destroyed by earth. This is the power of Psalm 1. It divides reality into two paths and gives you the map to choose. It warns of drifting and invites to planting. It shows the emptiness of chaff and the permanence of trees. It calls you away from noise into meditation. It teaches you to replace impulse with wisdom. It affirms that prosperity is not accident but consequence. Hill said success begins with a definite purpose. The psalm says blessing begins with delight in the law of the Lord. Both are saying the same thing. Alignment is everything. So let these words be more than information. Let them be activation. Do not just admire the tree. Become one. Do not just pity the chaff. Refuse to live like one. Plant yourself. Meditate day and night. Protect your influences. Persist in your purpose. Align with truth. And trust that your way is known. Say it with conviction. I am a tree planted by streams of water. I will give fruit in my season. My leaf will not wither. Whatever I do will prosper. My way is known by the Lord. Declare it, write it, repeat it. Let it engrave itself in your subconscious. Let it program your mind like Hill described. Let it become conviction, and let conviction become action. Because once you are rooted, nothing can shake you. The journey of Psalm 1 does not end with the declaration that the way of the righteous is known and the way of the wicked perishes. In many ways, that statement is the foundation for everything else a life of purpose and influence will require. Because if your way is known, you are not walking alone. If your path is aligned with truth, you are not merely surviving, you are shaping a legacy. This idea of legacy is vital. True success is not measured only by what you achieve for yourself, but by what you impart to others. Psalm 1 sets the stage. The righteous are like a tree planted by streams of water. A tree does not eat its own fruit. It produces for others. It provides shade, oxygen, nourishment, and continuity for generations. The righteous do not exist only for themselves. They exist to impact, to serve, to inspire, to provide stability in a world of chaos. Napoleon Hill echoed this when he studied the lives of successful leaders. He noticed that the greatest among them were not merely accumulators of wealth. They were multipliers of vision. They left principles, values, ideas, and systems that endured long after their physical presence ended. He taught that the highest form of success is influence, the ability to shape minds, guide actions, and ignite transformation in others. This is where Psalm 1 and Hill meet again. The psalm shows the contrast between the rooted tree and the drifting chaff. Hill describes the disciplined mind versus the drifting mind. Both point to the same truth. If you live rootless, you leave nothing behind. If you live rooted, you leave more than possessions. You leave transformation. Think of a leader you admire. What makes their impact so strong? Likely not just what they owned or accomplished, but how they inspired, how they shaped, how they planted seeds in others. That is legacy, and legacy begins with how you think today, with what you choose to meditate on, with what you allow to take root in your mind. Psalm 1 is not only about protecting your own soul, it is about forming a foundation strong enough that others can build on it. Your children, your community, your students, your colleagues, all are impacted by whether you are tree or chaff. Hill understood this generational impact. He emphasized that environment shapes belief, and belief shapes destiny. The first environment every human experiences is the home, a home filled with negativity, fear, and distraction plants seeds of insecurity, but a home filled with faith, respect, and clarity plants seeds of confidence and vision. Parents, leaders, teachers, every word spoken, every action modeled, becomes a seed in the soil of another life. The psalmist captures this truth with poetic clarity. The righteous prosper in all they do, and that prosperity extends to those connected to them. The wicked perish, and their instability infects those around them. Your personal path is never only personal, it creates ripple effects. Pause and reflect. What are you leaving behind? Is it confusion or clarity? Is it fear or faith? Is it distraction or discipline? Every decision you make, every word you speak, every action you repeat, becomes an invisible inheritance. Legacy is not something prepared at the end of life. It is built daily. Hill insisted on this. He wrote that success is not what you achieve at one point in time. It is who you become in the process, and who you become determines the influence you carry. The psalmist agrees. Meditate day and night. Guard your influences, remain rooted, and your life will prosper, and that prosperity will extend to generations. The imagery of the tree helps us see legacy more clearly. A tree must be shaped, trained, and pruned. Left wild, it grows without direction, but when carefully cultivated, it produces abundant fruit and strong branches. The same is true of a life of influence. You cannot simply drift and hope to leave impact. You must cultivate. You must train your mind, shape your habits, prune your distractions. Hill taught that habits formed in youth create the trajectory of destiny. Psalm 1 reveals the same truth. Meditate day and night, and your roots will grow strong enough to withstand storms and provide shade to others. Leadership, therefore, is not about control, but about cultivation. It is about shaping lives through example, through clarity, through consistency. Hill called this influence. The psalmist calls it righteousness. Both speak of the same principle. You cannot guide others where you have not rooted yourself. Consider the metaphor of arrows used elsewhere in Scripture. Children are like arrows in the hand of a warrior. Arrows must be shaped, sharpened, aimed, and released. The same applies to any life you influence. Your words and actions are shaping tools. Your vision is the aim. Your faith is the release. A leader who refuses to shape or fears to release will waste potential, but a leader who cultivates, guides, and releases will send arrows farther than they could travel alone. Hill recognized this too. He observed that the best leaders created successors, people who could carry on the vision beyond their lifetime. They were not afraid to release because they had prepared. True legacy is not control. It is influence that lasts beyond your presence. Now return to the psalm. The wicked leave no legacy because they leave no root. They are like chaff. What happens to chaff when the wind blows? It disappears. No fruit, no shade, no seed, nothing remains. But the righteous tree produces seeds that scatter, roots that deepen, branches that expand. It multiplies itself. This is the dividing line of Psalm 1. The difference is not only between prosperity and perishing, it is between impact and emptiness, between legacy and oblivion, between a life that multiplies and a life that vanishes. Ask yourself, what seeds am I planting today? Am I shaping lives, or am I drifting aimlessly? Am I leaving clarity, or am I spreading confusion? Hill gave a simple but powerful warning. If you do not take control of your mind, someone else will. If you do not plant purpose, the world will plant distraction. If you do not train your thoughts, your environment will train them for you. The psalmist says the same in different words. Blessed is the one who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, stand in the path of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers. Your influences shape your legacy. This is why leadership must begin with personal discipline. You cannot call others to meditate day and night if you are not doing so yourself. You cannot invite others to root deeply if you are drifting on the surface. Hill emphasized that leaders are first leaders of their own minds. Psalm 1 confirms it. Prosperity flows from inner construction. Imagine a generation shaped by rooted leaders. Parents planting seeds of faith and discipline in children. Teachers modeling clarity and respect. Entrepreneurs building businesses not only for profit, but for principle. Pastors guiding congregations to meditate day and night on truth. Such a generation would be unshakable. That is the vision of Psalm 1 extended beyond the individual. And here lies the invitation for you. Your life is not small. Your influence is not accidental. Every word, every thought, every choice is either planting or scattering. You are either building trees or creating chaff. Perhaps you feel unqualified. Perhaps you think your past disqualifies you from shaping others. Hear this. Trees do not start as trees. They start as seeds, and seeds grow when planted. The psalmist does not say the righteous were always strong. It says they chose to meditate. They chose to root. They chose to separate from destructive influences. Hill taught the same. No one begins as a master of their mind. Discipline is trained. Purpose is clarified. Habits are formed over time. The good news is that you can start now. No matter your past, you can begin planting seeds today. You can choose to filter your influences. You can choose to meditate daily. You can choose to define your purpose with clarity, and those choices will not only transform you, but ripple outward into the lives of many. Legacy is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about choosing the path of the righteous and walking it consistently. Hill said success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. That phrase means success is not a destination, it is a direction. It is movement in alignment with a worthy vision. Psalm 1 says the same. The Lord knows the way of the righteous. The righteous are not perfect, but their way is known, guided, sustained. So let this be your decision today. I will not drift. I will plant. I will meditate day and night. I will shape my thoughts. I will cultivate legacy. I will lead by example. I will align with truth, and my way will be known by the Lord. Repeat it, write it, declare it, because every declaration is a seed. Every repetition is water. Every meditation is sunlight. And the more you practice, the deeper your roots, the stronger your tree, the greater your fruit. And when storms come, and they will, you will stand. And not only stand, you will provide shelter for others. Your children, your students, your community will find shade beneath your branches. That is the power of the righteous life. That is the promise of Psalm 1. That is the principle Hill observed in every life of lasting success. The psalm that began with a simple distinction now arrives at its ultimate conclusion. Psalm 1 started by contrasting the way of the righteous with the way of the wicked, and it ends with a final verdict. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. This is not poetry for decoration. It is the summary of life itself, the dividing line between permanence and collapse, between clarity and confusion, between purpose and emptiness. The righteous are not defined by perfection. They are defined by alignment. Their way is known because they walk under the covering of wisdom, truth, and divine direction. To be known by the Lord does not mean merely observed from afar. In the biblical sense, to be known is to be accompanied, sustained, and guided. It is a relationship, not an abstract idea. The righteous walk with invisible support, even in storms. Their roots are sustained, their fruit continues, and their way has meaning beyond the immediate. Napoleon Hill, though writing in the language of success and psychology, pointed to this same truth. He spoke of alignment with what he called infinite intelligence, a higher order of wisdom that flows when the human mind disciplines itself, clarifies its purpose, and persists with faith. He taught that when you align with infinite intelligence, circumstances shift, opportunities align, and doors open that once seemed closed. The psalmist declares the same principle. The way of the righteous is known. Their life is under supervision, under protection, under divine order. In contrast, the wicked are not guided, not rooted, not aligned. Their way perishes, not because of external punishment, but because of internal collapse. Without root, no structure survives. Without foundation, no house stands. Without clarity, no purpose endures. The wicked path is self-destructive because it is disconnected. Hill called this drifting, the state of a mind without purpose, without discipline, without direction. Such a mind may appear active, may even achieve temporary results, but eventually, it collapses under its own instability. Pause for a moment and reflect. Which way are you walking? Is your path known, aligned, guided, rooted, or are you drifting, unstable, moving from impulse to impulse, without anchor, without clarity? The psalm ends with urgency, because there are only two paths, not many, not infinite, but two, the way of permanence and the way of perishing. This final verse is not meant to scare but to awaken. It is a call to evaluate your construction. What have you been building? On what foundation? With what materials? Psalm 1 insists that without meditation day and night, without separation from destructive influences, without clarity of purpose, no life can withstand the storms of reality. Hill, from another angle, said the same. Without a definite purpose, without persistent faith, without the discipline of thought, failure is inevitable. But here is the promise. The way of the righteous is known. This means stability is possible. Legacy is possible. Prosperity with purpose is possible. Prosperity with purpose is possible. A life of influence, clarity, and fruit is possible. Not only possible, but guaranteed when the foundation is right. Think about this image again. The tree planted by streams of water. Its fruit arrives in season. Its leaf does not wither. Everything it does prospers. Why? Not because of luck, not because of chance, not even because of sheer effort. It prospers because its roots are connected to a constant, invisible, unshakable source. That is what it means for your way to be known. Now contrast again with the chaff. What legacy does chaff leave? None. What shade does it provide? None. What fruit does it offer? None. What fruit does it offer? None. The wind comes, and it is gone. That is the tragedy of a drifting life. A life without foundation, without root, without connection to higher order. Hill spent decades interviewing men and women who had built empires, industries, and movements. He concluded that the common denominator was not luck, not intelligence, not family background. It was clarity of purpose aligned with persistence and faith. Every one of them resisted drifting. They chose to root their minds, to discipline their thoughts, to align with a vision greater than themselves. The psalmist said it thousands of years earlier. Blessed is the one who meditates day and night, who separates from destructive influences, who roots deeply in truth. So what is the final invitation of Psalm 1? It is not simply to admire the metaphor of tree and chaff. It is to decide, to choose which way you will walk, to choose what kind of inheritance you will leave, to choose whether your life will be a rooted tree of legacy or scattered dust of wasted opportunity. Your past does not disqualify you. Your failures do not define you. What matters is what you choose now. The tree does not grow overnight. It grows day by day, root by root, meditation by meditation, decision by decision. The same is true for you. Begin today. Begin with one clear purpose. Begin with one daily meditation. Begin with one conscious separation from toxic influence, and your roots will deepen, your branches will extend, and your fruit will appear in season. Hill often said, "Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal." That phrase echoes Psalm 1 exactly. The righteous prosper not because of instant achievement, but because of progressive realization. Every meditation is a root. Every act of faith is a branch. Every decision aligned with purpose is a fruit in the making. The wicked may appear fast, flashy, immediate, but their way perishes. It cannot last. You are invited to build differently, to build slowly, deeply, intentionally, to build in such a way that storms cannot uproot you, critics cannot shake you, and time cannot erase you. Consider again your influence. Your life is not only for you, your children, your community, your colleagues, your students. They will eat of your fruit or feel the emptiness of your lack. If you root yourself, they will find shade in your strength. If you drift, they will inherit instability. This is why Psalm 1 is urgent. because life is not only about what you achieve, but what you pass on. Legacy is not optional. You are leaving one, whether you realize it or not. The only question is what kind. So let me ask you plainly, what legacy are you building? Are you leaving seeds of faith or seeds of fear? Are you leaving principles or confusion? Are you leaving stability or instability? Every choice today is an invisible seed of tomorrow. Hill insisted on writing down your definite purpose, not just thinking it vaguely, but declaring it clearly, specifically, repeatedly. Psalm 1 insists on meditation day and night. Both are saying the same. Fill your mind intentionally. Repeat truth constantly. Declare vision consistently, because repetition creates conviction, and conviction creates destiny. Your destiny is not accidental. It is the harvest of your thoughts, your meditations, your decisions. That is why Psalm 1 is not merely poetic. It is practical. It gives you the exact formula for a life of prosperity and permanence. Filter your influences. Meditate on truth. Remain rooted. Resist drifting, and align with divine order. The result is guaranteed. Fruit in season, leaves that do not wither, prosperity in all you do. This is not motivational optimism. It is a spiritual law. Just as a seed planted in fertile ground must eventually sprout, so a life planted in truth must eventually prosper. Now, as we close this journey through Psalm 1, let this not remain information. Let it become transformation. Do not just listen. Decide. Do not just admire. Act. Do not just agree. Align. Right now, make a declaration. Speak it. Write it. Plant it in your mind. Say, I am a tree planted by streams of water. My roots are deep. My fruit will come in season. My leaf will not wither. Everything I do will prosper, because my way is known by the Lord. Declare it again. I will not drift. I will not follow the counsel of the wicked. I will meditate day and night. I will live with definite purpose. I will leave legacy. I will be known. These words are not empty. They are seeds. And seeds, when repeated and nurtured, become trees. So here is your action. Do not leave this message without planting. Write in the comments if you are listening on video, or write on paper if you are reading. I am rooted. I am known. I am building legacy. This is not ritual. This is alignment. It is the visible act of an invisible decision. And if this message has awakened something in you, do one more thing. Share it. Share it with someone drifting. Share it with someone confused. Share it with someone tired of instability, because one seed can change a forest. One truth can redirect a life. One invitation can awaken purpose. Finally, subscribe, not as a routine click, but as a symbolic act. When you subscribe, you are saying, I choose to continue this journey of wisdom. I choose to root myself deeper. I choose to align with purpose. Every subscription is more than a number. It is a declaration, a seed planted in fertile ground. This is the end of Psalm 1, but the beginning of your new chapter. The way of the righteous is known. Choose it, walk it, live it, and your fruit will testify for generations.